Good afternoon. National Assembly for Wales is now in session. And before I call the first question, I'm sure that all the members will wish to join me in conveying our deepest sympathies to our colleague Mick Antoniv on the sudden loss of his wife Elaine. Our thoughts are with Mick and his family at this very sad time. Thank you. We now move to questions to the First Minister. And first question this afternoon is Alan Fred Jones.
Diolch. A wnaeth y Prif Weinidog ddatganiad am oblygiadau'r gostyngiad yng nghyllideb Llywodraeth Cymru ar gyfer 2015-2016 ar wasanaethau cyhoeddus yng Nghymru.
Na, fo ganlyniad i'r toriadau un cyllideb, mae gen ni bellach 1.4 biliwn o bunnoedd yn llai i'w wario ar wasanaethau cyhoeddus yng Nghymru nag yn 2010-2011.
Diolch yn fawr. Cwestiwn oedd ynglyn â'r oblygiadau i hynny wrth gwrs. Mae'r IFS yn amcangyfri o dan gynlluniau eich arweinydd Ed Miliband pe bai yn dod i Lywodraeth y bydd gostyngiad pellach yn yr arian revenue a fydd ar gael i Gymru o dros 200. Pe digwydd hynny, ydych chi'n rhagweld y bydd cyllideb Llywodraeth leol yn crebachu ymhellach neu pa feisydd eraill ydych chi'n credu y bydd yn gorfod wynebu cwtogiadau?
Mae wastad heriau wrth gwrs ynglyn â unrhyw toriadau. Bydd yna her fawr wrth gwrs os welwn ni toriadau o 20% a dyna wrth gwrs yw cynlluniau y blaid dwriaeth yng Nghymru.
Anne Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, we know that we have to plan, should there be another, or should the Tory government stay in power, which I don't think is going to happen. And certainly I will do all I can to make sure that the public are aware of the disastrous cuts that we have suffered on the Welsh Block grants. And so, First Minister, whilst I'm confident that when Labour do get in, we will reprioritise public spending to suit those needs of the constituents and not leave them without vital services, what assessment have you made of the position for the next couple of years for public services in constituencies like mine who heavily rely on both public sector for their jobs but also the public sector services as well?
Well, there will be a cut of 20% in Welsh government budgets between 2015 and 2020. And we can all see what that would lead to. We know from the party opposite that they would cut job creation schemes by 30%, cut education spending by 20%, cut local government spending by 12%, cut housing spending by 12%. I think we all know, and the people of Wales know, it would be an unmitigated disaster in recent history if the Tories were returned on the 7th of May.
Can I take it there's an election soon? We're not even finished question 1 yet. Jonathan Saunders.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the implications of these cuts to our public services come at a time of massive uncertainty, unprecedented financial challenge and immense demoralisation across our local authorities as a result of your government's chaos around local government reorganisation. Welsh local authorities are simply struggling to make prudent, effective, sound, medium or long-term decisions on their spending priorities. First Minister, will you make a statement today to provide some assurances to our authorities that a definitive and deliverable plan will be presented to this Assembly before the summer recess?
Yes, as we've said, I mean, other parties have not produced alternative proposals. We will produce our map before the summer. But I could say to the member opposite, she complains about cuts. Her party wanted to go further. They want to cut local government spending by 12%. Their own alternative budget, written, if you remember, on one side of A4 some 3 years ago. What they want to see are cuts in local government budgets, cuts in social care. They want to see increases in council tax, a 17% council tax increase to bring them to the level of England, which is what people in England pay on average. We all know that what we have proposed doesn't go far enough in terms of cuts as far as the Tories are concerned, and we'll take no lessons from them in terms of public probity.
Alan Roberts.
Mwyn parhau efo'r thema etholiadol, dyn ni gyd yn cydnabod bod yna amseroedd anodd pa bynnag lywodraeth fydd yna yn Llundain ar ôl Mai. Felly, ydych chi'n barod i gydnabod lle mae yna reidrwydd i ni fod yn cynnig gwerth am arian bod cyfraniad democratiaeth rhyddfrydol yn y gyllideb efo chi yn y gorffennol wedi bod yn un positif.
Wrth gwrs, wy'n croesawu'n fawr iawn a trafodaethau sydd wedi cymryd lle rhwng ni a'r Rhyddfrydwyr Democrataidd i roi sicrwydd i bobl Cymru. Mae'n dangos wrth gwrs bod hi'n bosib i weithio yn draws bleidiol yn y siambr hyn mwyn sicrhau lles i'n bobl ni.
Before we move to question 2, can I just remind members that this is an opportunity to question the First Minister and not have long run-up introductions. So, I've been very generous on the first item. Question. I don't intend to be generous on the rest. Question 2 is Ellen Jones.
Awn eith y Prif Weinidog am linellu blaenoriaethau Llywodraeth Cymru ar gyfer trafnidiaeth cyhoeddus yn y gorllewin.
Cydnabod pwysigrwydd system trafnidiaeth fforddiadwy effeithiol ledled Cymru ac eith manylion y cynllun trafnidiaeth cenedlaethol drafft a'i pennu yn nes ymlaen y gwanwyn hwn.
Prif Weinidog, mae yna gonsensws yn datblygu o gwmpas y potensial o ail-agor rheilffordd Aberystwyth i Gyfyrddin, a mae swyddogion yr adran drafnidiaeth chi yn cwrdd gyda ymgyrchwyr Trawslink Cymru, yr ymgyrch i hyrwyddo ail-agor y rheilffordd yma yn y dyfodol agos. Y cam nesaf yn y cynllun yma, i wireddu'r cynllun yma, yw i gomisiynu darn o waith adroddiad llawn ar y posibiliad yma. A wnewch chi edrych gyda'r Gweinidog Economi ar y posibilrwydd o wneud hyn yn ystod y flwyddyn diwethaf o'ch llywodraeth chi?
Wrth gwrs, wy'n gwybod bod hwn yn rhywbeth sydd yn bwysig dros ben. Allwn i ddim gweud wrth gwrs bod hwn yn rhywbeth sy'n rwydd i wneud, ac yn siep i wneud, ond beth o'n rhaid ni ystyried yw beth bydd e'r costiau, faint o, wel, does dim trac na dim rhag, ond dim ond mynd rai mannau, beth sydd eisiau, beth bydd y goffod wneud mwyn ail-adeiladu'r rwydwaith. Yn gwybod bod y rheilffordd ei hunan i'r gogledd o Bont y Fendigaidd ddim wedi bod nes y 80au, a felly y cam nesaf nawr yw'r ystyried beth bydd y gwaith, pa fath o waith oedd yn cael ei wneud, ac wrth gwrs beth ydy'r costiau.
Paul Davies.
Diolch Llywydd. Prif Weinidog, mae gorsaf trenau Aberdygleddau yn fetholaeth i mewn angen difrifol am welliannau. Wir mae hyn yn portreadu delwedd negyddol o'r ardal oherwydd cyflwr gwael yr orsaf. Nawr, dwi'n derbyn fod y mater hyn ddim yn gyfrifoldeb uniongyrchol eich llywodraeth chi, ond dywedodd y Gweinidog dros trafnidiaeth mewn llythyr i fi ym mis Hydref y llynedd y byddai'n pwyso ar network rail ar y mater hwn. Ac felly, yn yr ymgyrchiadau, allwch chi ddweud wrthyn ni pa gamau penodol mae Llywodraeth Cymru wedi cymryd ar y mater hwn?
Wel, wrth gwrs, mae'n rhywbeth i ystyried ynglyn â beth sy'n digwydd gyda'r franchise yn 2017, bydd mwy o reolaeth wedyn wrth gwrs gyda ni ynglyn â pa fath o wasanaeth a pa fath o'r safoedd bydde bobl Cymru eisiau gweld. Ond derbyn wrth gwrs bod ni'n bwysig dros ben i ni weld ym mha ffyrdd allan ni wella gorsafoedd trenau Cymru, a bydd hwnna'n rhan o trafodaethau dros y blynyddoedd nesaf.
William Powell.
Diolch yn fawr, Llywydd. First Minister, for some 5 years now, proposals have been worked up for the reopening of Bow Street station in Ceredigion, allied to a park and ride scheme that would serve to greatly alleviate traffic congestion in Aberystwyth town, as well as providing access to the groundbreaking IBIS Centre of Excellence at Bow Street. And in addition to that, it would also contribute greatly to Aberystwyth fulfilling its Welsh Government designated status of a regional centre, and doing so in a sustainable way. In that context, First Minister, will you recommit to working with your Transport Minister, with Ceredigion County Council, and indeed with the local Bow Street Action Group to bringing this important initiative to fruition?
Yes, of course, and I know that the Mid Wales Railways Implementation Group has reported to the Minister on the implementation of new services and other related issues, and the Minister is examining how, of course, we can improve services on the Central Wales line. The emphasis has been on looking at improving frequency, but certainly in time consideration will need to be given to see whether more stations can be opened.
We now move to questions from the party leaders, and first this afternoon, Leader of Plaid Cymru, Leanne Wood.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, I listened carefully to the answer that you gave to my colleague Alan Fred Jones earlier when he asked you how much has been cut from the Welsh Government's budget since 2010, and you said £1 billion. I wonder if you can tell us then what the assessment has been from your government about the impact of those cuts on Welsh public services.
We see the impact around us, of course. We've commissioned specific work in terms of welfare cuts. We know that the bedroom tax has affected Wales very, very badly. We know, for example, that although we have protected health spending and we've protected spending for schools, there are some areas of expenditure where the money is not available at the level that we would want. That's why it's so important, of course, that whatever happens on the 7th of May, we see a commitment to growth in public investment from any incoming government in London.
Thank you for your answer, First Minister. Prior to the UK Government's comprehensive spending review back in 2013, you said, and I quote, that the Welsh Government has repeatedly made it clear that we believe that cuts are being imposed on us by the Tories in London are being made too far and too fast. Now, I agree with you that these Tory cuts have been very damaging to Welsh public services. So do you stand by that statement? And if you do, can you tell us what would be an acceptable level and pace of cut for your government during the next Westminster Parliament?
Yes, I stand by those comments. I would expect to see over the next Westminster parliamentary term an increase in public spending in Wales, as opposed to the 20% decrease we could expect under a Conservative government.
Well, that's not the information that's been provided to us by the IFS, who tell us that a Labour government will cut the budget to devolved institutions by 2.2%. That's a cut. And you've said recently that you support plans to cut your own government spending by between 2 and 3% in the coming years. Now, I can only begin to imagine the effect and the impact of cuts of 2 or 3% on the Welsh Government's budget in terms of cuts to our schools and hospitals. So let me just get this straight. You oppose Wales getting parity with Scotland in terms of funding. So will you therefore back our calls for an emergency budget after the election to reverse Tory spending cuts to the Welsh Government's budget? Yes or no?
First of all, we have to see what the result is. But 2 points I have to make to the Leader of Plaid Cymru. First of all, I was amazed to see the call from the SNP yesterday to talking about parity of spending between Wales and Scotland. I notice the SNP are not going to contribute to that. So it's all about, we'll support you, but don't ask us for a penny in terms of funding. A great deal of solidarity there amongst the parties, of course. And secondly, the one thing I can say to the Leader of Plaid Cymru is this. We will have 5 years with the Labour government of investment in Wales from 2015 to 2020. The only way to ensure that Labour government is elected is, of course, for people to vote Labour. They know that the Leader of Plaid Cymru has said that she will not support a Labour Queen speech. She will look to vote it down in certain circumstances. That is the reality of what she said on Sunday. She says that she will work with other parties. The reality is she will work for herself, and she's more than happy to work with the Tories.
Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Archie-Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, 3 weeks ago, 102 businessmen and women wrote a letter at the start of the election campaign from Wales, but also across the rest of the United Kingdom, highlighting their endorsement of Conservative economic record over the last 5 years and imploring the voters to back that record in the long-term economic plan. Can you name me any Welsh businesses who are backing your economic plan?
There are plenty of Welsh businesses who have received support from government. They know full well, for example, that we have had foreign direct investment at its highest level for 30 years. Well, they're your donors. You can name your own people if you want. They're your donors at the end of the day. Of course, they're going to jump to your tune. All I can tell you is this: we have unemployment coming down. We have economic activity going up. We have the best foreign direct investment figures for 30 years. We are in a position now where we see jobs being created across the whole of Wales. We see investment being brought in as a result of the activities of the Welsh Government. It is a shame we don't have a UK government that's willing to work hard for the people of Wales.
You couldn't name one, First Minister, and you shamelessly said that they were donors of the Conservative Party. I think many of those 102 names would find it a real insult if you said something. They back the economic record of the Conservatives in government. We know what your record is. Isn't it a fact that there's been 55,000 new jobs created in Wales, nearly 25,000 new businesses, and if we go back to Labour's slash and burn mentality as regards the economy, in particular with their economic record of illiteracy, all that will be put at risk. Don't you believe that ultimately what we need for the next 5 years is the long-term economic plan that has created those 55,000 jobs, made 25,000 new businesses open up here in Wales, and guaranteed take-home pay for so many people here in Wales?
Well, did he just say a slash and burn approach? I mean, there's been an irony transplant somewhere on the benches opposite. That's all we've seen for 5 years is slash and burn from the Conservatives. He's right. We do need a long-term economic plan. We do need certainty. We do need investment. And what do we see? What do we see? We saw the launch of the Conservative manifesto, which promised lots and lots of things without even costing what they were going to spend it on. At the end of the day, what we see now is a Conservative party in London that's become a party of opposition, making wild promises that are uncosted, and I'm sure the people of Wales will want to see responsibility and a Labour government post the 7th of May.
I've offered you on 2 occasions, First Minister, to endorse your party's economic record going forward for this election. It would be slash and burn on the economy if Ed Balls and Ed Miliband took control of the economy. We saw it in 2010, employment going up, business closures going up, and ultimately confidence in the economy going down the pan. What we have is a growing economy, a record number of people in work, and ultimately new businesses opening day in, day out. Your party will take us back, our party will take us forward. What we can see from this argument is you can't trust Labour on the economy. If you want a future, you need the Conservatives.
Well, the Leader of the Opposition is turning UKIP purple. Have you seen his face? He's turning UKIP purple. I mean, that tells us something about his real thinking. Unemployment was lower in 2010 than it is now. Lower. What his party inherited was an economy that was growing, and they turned it into a shambles. Let me give him one thing. I could spend all day pointing out his weaknesses and his party's approach. One thing, right? We on this side of the Assembly believe that we need to make sure that we get rid of 0 hours contracts, that people get paid the living wage. And what has his party done? The one thing that perhaps the people of Wales should remember them for, they took the European Union on because the Union wanted to restrict bankers' bonuses. So bankers' bonuses are far more important for them than ordinary working people. What we are seeing now is the dying squeal of a dying party.
Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. First Minister, it costs £6.50 every time a car wants to come into Wales across the Severn Bridge, more for larger vehicles. What estimate has your government made of the cost to the Welsh economy of the Severn Bridge tolls?
We know that there's a cost to the Welsh economy. Just to explain to the Leader of the Liberal Democrats where we have come to in terms of discussions with the Department for Transport. The Department for Transport are unable to give us a cost of the bridge's maintenance. Anything between about 20 million and over 100 million is what we've had. So they have no particular idea of what the bridges would cost. At the moment, when the bridges return to public ownership, what we will see is every single penny being diverted to the roads budget in England and nothing at all coming to Wales. And the decision on where those tolls will be set will be taken not in Wales, but in Whitehall. There's an election coming, so I'm going to say this. I understand what her party has said in terms of the tolls. We have said in our manifesto that we want the tolls to be controlled from Wales.
Interesting, First Minister, because I believe that there is a massive impact to the Welsh economy, and your government will undoubtedly be looking very closely as to the proposals for reform of those tolls and the impact that may have. Now, it's clear to me that Plaid Cymru are happy to have a tax on entering Wales as long as it's collected by the Welsh Government. And I'm interested to hear what you say about your own manifesto, because the Labour UK manifesto, the same as the Tory UK manifesto, doesn't mention the tolls at all. So could you please tell us what your government's position is with regards to tolls?
Well, it's a Welsh manifesto for a Welsh issue. So of course it says that we would look to control the tolls from Wales. Our position is quite simple. We believe the tolls should be set and controlled in Wales. It's very difficult to estimate what the tolls should be set at unless we know what the maintenance costs are of the bridge. But be in no doubt, we want to make sure that those tolls are controlled from Wales and that any money that comes from those tolls is actually diverted into Wales.
Well, Presiding Officer, I'm kind of interested in the status of a policy set out in a Welsh Labour manifesto that isn't in a UK one. I wonder which one Mr Balls and Mr Miliband would turn to first. First Minister, we know your ministers have acknowledged that the impact on the Welsh economy of these tolls is huge. The Federation of Small Businesses say that they are damaging to the South Wales economy. Edwina Hart said, tolling has an adverse economic impact on Wales. So rather than fret about which government gets to keep the tax, why don't you back the Liberal Democrat campaign to get rid of the tolls altogether?
Well, the leader of the Liberal Democrats is newly arrived at the party. We've been saying this for months on end until the Liberal Democrats mentioned this in their manifesto. Our belief is that tolls should be controlled from Wales. That's not what you have said as a party. You've not given an indication that the tolls should be controlled from Wales, given the fact that the tolls mainly affect Wales. From our point of view, we want to make sure that we examine the maintenance costs of the bridges, the tolls are controlled from Wales, and then take a decision from there. But be in no doubt, we want to make sure that the 7 bridge tolls are within the control of the people of Wales.
We now move back to questions on the paper. And question 3, David Rees.
Will the First Minister make a statement on the Welsh Government's transport programme for the remainder of the Assembly term?
Yes, it's outlined in the National Transport Plan, which is due to be finalised later this spring.
Thank you for that answer, First Minister. I'm sure you recognise that the M4 plays a major important role in transport across South Wales. And I, like many of my constituents, are actually disappointed that the Welsh Government didn't take advantage of the period following the end of the trial closure of the westbound entry slip road junction 41 to actually assess the effectiveness of the average speed cameras on the overhead section of the M4 in Port Talbot. Though I do recognise that the Minister did take the decision on the advice of her officials. Following that decision, actually during the recess, road markers appeared on the A48 in Port Talbot with little direction to the westbound M4, and residents have expressed deep concern that the indicated decision has already been made. Can you reassure my constituents that no decision has been made yet, and then when it is made, you will actually ensure that all evidence arriving at that decision will be made public?
I can give the members' constituents the assurance that no decision has been made. A decision will be made next month once the Minister has received the final report. In terms of the road markings he's referred to, they are Neath Port Talbot Council road markings or Welsh Government road markings. We understand they should have been in place some weeks ago, so they have been delayed in terms of being put onto the road, but that does not affect, nor is any precursor to, any decision the Minister might take.
Byron Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, we've spoke many times about the huge investment in South Wales railway network from the UK government and across the governmental and the cross-governmental agreement on the South Wales Valleys lines. I've asked you many times to outline your government transport programme to build on this investment and start to deliver the metro concept, which we all agree is a significant step forward for South Wales. So specifically, can you outline these plans and assure me that these plans will be available in the remaining period of this Assembly?
Yeah, well, the answer to that is yes, we are moving forward with the plans for the metro, but I do have to say I'm slightly taken aback by the fact that we have a member who is lauding the UK government's investment into the main line and valley lines, which we're happy with, yet some months ago was telling us that the UK government wasn't making an investment into the valley lines, nor indeed the line between Cardiff Central and Bridgend. He was basically parroting the party line, and now he's parroting the party line again. The only reason why we are getting electrification between Cardiff Central and Bridgend and the valley lines is because we shamed the UK government into doing it. Because David Cameron came down here and said, we will electrify the valley lines, then denied he was ever going to do it. And of course, sure enough, we got to a position, and I have to say that the Secretary of State was somebody who was helpful in these circumstances. I'll be charitable in those circumstances, despite there being an election coming, because he helped to rectify the breach of promise that was there from the UK government. So yes, we do welcome the electrification of the valley lines and the South Wales main line, but that decision should have been taken much, much sooner, and it took us shaming the UK government in order for it to be done.
Roger Glyn Thomas.
Prif Weinidog, wrth i chi edrych yn ôl dros 1 mlynedd ar 15 o lywodraeth llafur yma yng Nghymru gyda'r prif gyfrifoldeb am drafnidiaeth, pa camau gwirioneddol sydd wedi cael ei cymeryd i greu system drafnidiaeth integredig ledled Cymru sy'n cysylltu pob rhan o Gymru a'i gilydd?
Gofiwch os bod pedair mlynedd wedi dod o dan rym i blaid so nid dim ond y blaid lafur. Beth sy'n digwydd? Yn gyntaf, wrth gwrs, mae gyda ni tren sy'n nawr yn redeg bob 2 awr yn Caerdydd a Caergybi. Pan ddechreuodd y cynulliad, doedd dim siwrd wasanaeth oedd rhaid newid yn y 80. Mae gyda ni awyren sydd yn mynd o'r gogledd i'r de nawr. Wedi gweld datblygiad o'r wasanaeth traws Cymru mwyn sicrhau bod mwy o rwydwaith nag oedd yna o'r blaen o dan yr hen system o'r traws Cambria. So felly mae yna rwydwaith bysiau wedi cael ei ddod i mewn i le, rwydwaith trenau wedi cael ei ddod i mewn i le, ac wrth gwrs ni wedi gweld llinellau yn ailagor yn y de. So felly i gymaru le o'n i yn 99, lle ddod dim modd mynd o'r gogledd, o bach iawn oedd y cyfleoedd yn mynd o'r gogledd i'r de ar drafnidiaeth cyhoeddus. Mae pethau wedi newid i'r gorau yn sylweddol.
Peter Black.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, I'm happy to accept the Government's reassurances that no decision has been taken on Junction 41. However, I am concerned about the quality of the evidence which will be used to assess the effect of the closure and in terms of the Government's final decision. Because halfway through that closure, of course, cameras have gone on the M4, which would change the whole driving conditions on that motorway and makes it very difficult to do any comparison between what is happening now and what happened before the closure went ahead. Can I ask you, therefore, how you're going to reconcile that particular issue in terms of making a decision on whether or not that junction should be closed or not?
Yeah, that will be something that will be considered. Of course, the member's right to point out the change in circumstances. The Minister will consider those factors as well as the final report before taking a decision.
Question 4, William Graham.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister outline the Welsh Government's consideration of the Institute of Wales Affairs report, an economic strategy for Wales?
Yes, the report is clear that growth can't come without investment. And despite the deep cuts to our budget from the UK Government, we are continuing to support jobs and growth right across Wales, investing in infrastructure, business finance, skills and innovation.
I'm grateful to the First Minister for his reply, and you will note from the executive summary of that report, ambitions to close the wealth gap between Wales and England will remain elusive unless ministers set out ambitious plans for economic growth backed up by actions. What specific actions are you taking at this time, First Minister?
Well, I can assure them that cutting the economic development budget by 30%, as his party suggests, is not the place to start. I can say to him that if you look at gross domestic household income and GVA, they have increased. Exports have increased. We know, for example, that foreign direct investment is at a record high. We know, for example, that given the suite of business support that we're able to offer as a government, we have been successful in attracting in investors such as, for example, Pinewood, such as, for example, CGI, such as Raytheon in the north, and, of course, working closely with companies such as Airbus and Tata in order to preserve jobs in factories that employ many, many people across the whole of Wales. That is, to my mind, evidence that what we are doing is successful.
Alan Fred Jones.
Sorry.
No. Elena Parrott.
First Minister, your predecessor suggested that Wales's GVA, the target ought to be 90% of the UK average. It's currently around 72% and it hasn't changed significantly over the period of devolution despite two inputs of European funding. Do you share that target? Do we still stick to the 90% target? And if so, when do you anticipate that that will actually be achieved?
Well, first of all, it's important to note that GVA has improved. It's not a question of GVA having gone backwards. It's true to say that GVA has not improved when compared to UK figures. If you look at gross domestic household income, we know that the situation there is different and the figures are better. It is the case that we have a lot of students, a lot of people who are not working, whether they're retired, and that, of course, affects GVA. It's not a true reflection of it's not a true reflection of wealth within a community, GVA. But what we do know is we see now unemployment coming down, we see economic activity rising. We see, for example, through schemes such as Jobs Growth Wales, 15,000 young people being offered an opportunity they wouldn't otherwise have had, and its successor scheme will do much the same. So in terms of what we are offering as a government, we believe that we are seeing improvements to the Welsh economy, a broadening of the Welsh economic base, and a level of investment not seen for 30 years.
Question 5, Leo Griffith.
Llywyddannau y Prif Weinidog ddatganiad am effeithlonrwydd ynni stoc dau Cymru.
Wel, yn 2014 a 2015, buddsoddodd Llywodraeth Cymru 70 miliwn o bunnoedd yn ein rhaglen effeithlonrwydd ynni sy'n cynnwys arbed a nest a chymorth I welliannau mewn ardaloedd o dan arweiniad yr awdurdodau lleol. Cafodd dros 9,000 o gartrefi a gwella yn ystod 2013 I 2014 ac yn ôl y ffigurau ar gyfer 2014 I 2015, mae 8,000 o gartrefi pellach wedi cael ei gwella.
Mi oedd Plaid Cymru a nifer o bobl eraill wrth gwrs yn siomedig iawn bod y Llywodraeth wedi setlo am ddim ond ymrwymiad o 8% o welliad mewn effeithlonrwydd ynni tai newydd yn ddiweddar. Ar ôl ymgynghoriad wrth gwrs oedd yn ymgynghori ar welliant o 20% a gwelliant o 25%. Roedd setlo am 8% yn siomedig iawn. Nath nifer o aelodau'r Pwyllgor Amgylchedd ar ymweliad ag ardal yn Freiburg yn ddiweddar, lle mae yna nifer o dai yn cael ei godi I safonau Passive House, Nifer hefyd, wrth gwrs, yn cael ei codi bellach i safonau plus energy, hynny yw, maen nhw'n cynhyrchu fwy o hynny, nag y mae'r tai yna yn ei defnyddio. Nawr, mi oedd ganddoch chi yn y rhaglen lywodraeth, wrth gwrs, ymrwymiad i sicrhau gwelliant o 55% mewn effeithlonrwydd hynny o safbwynt y rheoliadau adeiladu o'i gymharu â lefel 2006 a 20% mewn cymhariaeth â lefel 2010. Ydych chi dal yn bwriadu cwrdd ar ymrwymiad yna?
Na targed wrth gwrs, ac ni'n erbyn cwrdd ar targed na erbyn diwedd tymor y cynulliad hyn.
Anne Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, the research shows that if you're living in a house that's less energy efficient, then sometimes your health and the health and the well-being of the constituents living in those drafty properties suffers. You've mentioned Nest and Arbed, and can I say thank you to the Welsh Government for that investment in Nest and Arbed for homes in my constituency. And I wonder whether the First Minister could confirm that this will carry on and that we'll see more homes in constituencies like mine being made more energy efficient through Nest and Arbed in the future through Welsh Labour Government.
Yes, we know this is an important scheme. From April 2012 to March 2015, over 1,200 homes, 1,250, were improved in Denbighshire. And I can say to the member, of course, that the number of homes improved in Denbighshire will increase further this year when the Arbed scheme in Prestatyn is completed.
Russell George.
First Minister, I've been contacted by a solar and biomass company in my constituency to say that Ofgem has recently withdrawn a boiler which was previously accredited for the renewable heat incentive from their approved list. Now, I am concerned that that will have a detrimental effect on renewable incentive schemes in general and dent homeowners' confidence in energy efficiency improvements themselves. Would you be willing to take this issue up with Ofgem to ensure that homeowners can make energy efficiency improvements to their homes without the fear of being penalised financially?
Of course, if the member provides me with those details, I will, of course, investigate that for him.
Question 6, Bethan Jenkins.
Will the First Minister make a statement on school closures in South Wales West?
Yes, local authorities have a duty to plan school places. They should keep their school estate under review to ensure that it's providing efficiently and effectively for all learners. When proposing change, local authorities should give paramount importance to the effect of proposals on quality and standards in education.
Thank you, First Minister, for that answer. You will appreciate that last week, Neath Talbot Council moved to carry forward with more closures of schools, and I named Tonmawr, Pontrhydyfen and Bryn as being the latest in the round of school closures after Cwmgors and Clyne previously. And I was in Bryn yesterday, and many parents, as you would expect, are very angry because they live in those communities and want to be able to send their children to schools with Tonmawr having a special needs area, and also in Bryn they have a newly refurbished trim trail in the school. What I want to try and do is to ask a constructive question in the sense that many of the people I talk to have said that these villages may become retirement villas, that there won't be any families moving into those villages in the future. What are you doing, therefore, to work with local authorities to try and plan out where these school closures are happening in small villages, what will go to those villages so that they will have a vibrant community in the future as opposed to those retired and sleepy towns that they do not want?
It is a matter, of course, for local authorities, and the member will know that there is the potential for Welsh Government to have a legal role in these matters, so I can't discuss in detail specific proposals. What I can say to the member is that local authorities must comply with the School Standards and Organisation of Wales Act and the School Organisation Code. They have to consider a range of factors when proposing change. Quality and standards in education, of course, they're factors I've already mentioned. But it is important, of course, that local authorities give full consideration to all the relevant factors when considering change in education.
Gwenna Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And following on from that response to Bethan Jenkins, First Minister, many of us will have read reports from the Local Government Association across the border warning of a crisis in primary school capacity. The LGA estimates that England will require an additional 880,000 school places over the course of the next decade. The principal cause of this is the unanticipated baby boom of recent years. Several parents whose children attend schools in my constituency, whose futures are now under review, have questioned the accuracy of the projected pupil numbers published by the Council. They argue that these predictions reflect neither the actual population growth in surrounding communities, nor the possibility of large-scale housing development. First Minister, clearly we do not want to find ourselves in the same boat as England. I believe I am correct in saying that councils must take into account the local development plans when making school organisation decisions. But is the Welsh Government providing further guidance to local authorities on the methodology used to predict future pupil numbers?
Well, local authorities are able to compare their performance on forecasting pupil numbers on a regular basis as a result of the annual monitoring of data conducted by our own Department for Education and Skills. It's for local authorities, of course, to decide what data and methods to use in forecasting pupil numbers, but it stands to reason that the methods that they use have to be robust. Most local authorities do use birth data and local development plan information. Where local authorities don't do that, it will be a matter for them to explain what data they do rely on.
Susie Davis.
Well, First Minister, the statutory process to which you referred for the closure of the schools to which Bethan Jenkins referred has not yet been completed. There are 28 days for objections to be lodged. That period has just started. And under the School Standards and Organisation Act Code, which you also referred to, it states that, that objections must be conscientiously considered alongside the arguments in respect of the proposals. Do you agree that the service of redundancy notices on staff at affected schools before the expiry of that statutory objection period is evidence of the Council either not wanting to or at least not being able to comply with that duty to conscientiously consider objections which, under the statutory process, are yet even to be lodged?
Well, without discussing particular circumstances, it stands to reason, of course, that councils will need to ensure that they do not give the impression that any decision has already been taken. They are an obligation, as the member has already said, to consider all objections as part of their decision-making process.
Question 7, Gwenda Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the regulation of bus services in Wales?
Yes, we're exercising a range of powers along with our local authority partners to support and improve bus services in Wales, helping to address the negative effects of deregulation in 1986. Public funding is increasingly being made conditional on improvements that we know passengers wish to see.
Thank you for that, First Minister. Some of my constituents are experiencing problems due to the recent loss of bus services, particularly in the evenings and particularly in rural areas. As we know, the proximate cause of this situation has been cuts coming down from Westminster, which have forced councils to reduce the subsidy funding available for bus routes run by private companies. Ultimately, however, the problem does stem back to the deregulation of the bus industry in the 1980s. First Minister, when bus regulation is devolved by the next Labour government, what action will the Welsh Government be able to take to increase the availability of services in Wales and to improve the quality of life for many of my constituents?
Well, the first thing that will happen is that we will no longer have to rely on a traffic commissioner based in Birmingham, who, to my experience, is completely ineffective in terms of bus services. There are some bus operators who have invested in buses and in routes. Others, the record is not quite so good. I would anticipate that what we'd look to do is to move towards further integration of bus services, particularly with rail services. As the metro is developed, there will be a need, for example, to ensure that the bus services connect to the metro system and there's proper integration of transport. The same thing applies to the Traws Cymru bus services, making sure that there's better integration of local bus services with those buses as they pass through the major centres of populations. There's much that can be done with the proper powers in place.
Myron Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, we're all aware of the mess-up, if I can put it that way, that was the concessionary fare funding arrangements with bus operators in Wales on the part of your government and the subsequent involvement of the courts. Now, you'll be aware that there is a cross-party consensus regarding the future of concessionary fares and we should keep them. Given this, can you give the Assembly a commitment that your government will properly fund the concessionary fare scheme, which enables bus companies to actually run the buses, which is particularly important in rural areas for our senior citizens, places such as Gower.
Well, the member's mishandled that question, hasn't he? I think we have to say that he has some brass neck to stand there and demand that we keep concessionary fares, which we will, incidentally, I can give him that assurance, when it was a Labour government who introduced them in the first place. In Wales, all those over 60 and those who are disabled, at a level of generosity that his party has failed to match in England. We know full well that if ever they got their hands on the reins of power here in Wales, then the concessionary fares scheme would disappear as we know it. I do wonder sometimes why he chooses this ground on which to fight.
Roger Dyn Thomas.
Gai ddiolch i'r Prif Weinidog wrth ateb y cwestiwn blaenorol gen i am gydnabod cyfraniad Plaid Cymru yn sicrhau fod yna gysylltiad awyr a rheilffordd effeithiol rhwng Gogledd Cymru a De Cymru. Ond y cwestiwn o fynes i oedd am drafnidiaeth integredig. Nawr wrth ymateb i Gwenda Thomas, roeddech chi'n gydnabod bod hynny wedi methu dros yr 1 mlynedd a 15 diwetha, fod yn rhaid i chi wynebu'r her yma o'r newydd o sicrhau fod amserau bus, er enghraifft, yn cyd-fynd amserau tren, y metro i chi'n sôn am i gyflwyno. Dydy hynny ddim wedi llwyddo dros yr 1 mlynedd a 15 diwetha yng Nghymru, Prif Weinidog?
Wel, tri pheth. Yn gynta, ynglyn â'r awyren, iawn, wrth gwrs. Fe yw'n gymydog Iaian, Wyn Jones, wrth gwrs, wrth tu ôl i hwnna. Ynglyn â'r trenau, wel na, oedd hwnna wedi cael ei wneud gan Llywodraeth Llafur, ond ta beth, beth wedi newid i'r gorau. Ond mae'n ei pwynt teg, sef, dyw ddim yn bosib i sicrhau system o drafnidiaeth integredig o achos y ffaith bod na ddim pwerau gyda ni dros rheoleiddio y buses eu hunan. So felly bydd y pwerau newydd yn rhoi cyfle i ni sicrhau bod y gwasanaethau sydd gyda ni nawr yn fwy integredig, yn redig, yn fwy ymal, ac wrth gwrs yn well ynglyn â'r busiau i hunain. So felly mae yna lot fawr o bethau allan i wneud gyda'r pwerau newydd hyn.
Question 8, Simon Thomas.
Pa astudiaethau mae Llywodraeth Cymru wedi cynnal i diweddaru canfyddiadau adroddiad Holtham 2010?
Wel, oedd y trysolus fod i wneud hwn, wedyn nhw bydden nhw'n wneud bydd yna gyfarfod rhwng swyddogion Llywodraeth Cymru a'r trysolus yn Llundain wythnos nesaf i weld beth sydd wedi cael ei wneud lan i nawr.
Wel, diolch am y diweddariad, Prif Weinidog. Ni'n gwybod pan cyhoeddwyd adroddiad Holtham bod Cymru'n cael ei tangyllido o ryw 300 miliwn o flwyddyn. Mae hynny'n golygu yn ystod eich cyfnod fel Prif Weinidog i chi wedi gweld colled i gyllid Cymru o 1.5 biliwn. Ac yn fy man hi, mae hynny yn gyfrifol, fanol gyfrifol, am dal y genedl yn ôl. Nawr, i ni gwybod bod yr Alban yn cael setliad fwy hael, ac i ni gwybod bod Ed Miliband wedi addo cadw setliad presennol yn yr Alban gyda llw enwog gyda'r weinwyr y pleidiau Prydeinig eraill. Nawr, mae yna 2 blaid yng Nghymru hyn y bryd sydd am unioni sefyllfa yma. Mae Plaid Cymru am godi lefel cyllido Cymru i lefel yr Alban, sef 1.2 biliwn yn ychwanegol. Mae UKIP am dorri lefel cyllido yr Alban i lawr i lefel Cymru. Ydych chi'n sefyll gyda Plaid Cymru neu gyda UKIP?
Dwi'n yn sefyll dy ddau, achos gyda UKIP, fi'n gwybod bod UKIP yn moyn ymosod ar yr Alban, ni'n gweld, wrth gwrs. Cwestiwn glawr dros pen, wrth gwrs. Ynglyn â Plaid Cymru, fel wedys i, ddim yn ddigonol i'r SNP i ddweud bod nhw'n cefnogi chi fel plaid, ond gweud smwch chi'n cael cuno wrtho ni. Dyw ddim yn gweithio fel yna. Achos yr unig ffordd allan nhw'n ddigwydd i gael rhyw fath o adolygiad cynhwysfawr o fformula Barnet, a byddai'r Alban yn colli allan o hynny. So ddim yn gallu gweld pam yn y moyn gweud smwch chi'n cael cuno wrtho ni lan yng Nghaer Edyn. Wrth gweud hynny, mae Jerry Holtham ei hunan wrth gwrs wedi gweud bod rhif ei hunan ddim yn 300 miliwn dim ragor. Mae'r ffigur yna wedi lleihau. Meddai'r ysgrifennydd gwladol bod yna ddim bwlch o gwbl. Dyn ddim yn derbyn hwnna, wrth gwrs. Ond mae'n bwysig dros ben bod ni yn deall beth yw'r bwlch ar hyn o bryd, a fel plaid ni wedi gweud wrth gwrs bod ni'n sicrhau bod y bwlch yn cael ei lan.
Nick Ramsey.
Diolch. Well, First Minister, what of course the Treasury has offered you and the UK coalition government has offered you is a Barnet floor, which was of course ignored by the previous Labour government, despite Jerry Holtham's report saying that a Barnet floor was necessary at times of growing economy and growing funding in public services. Will you now fully support and take the opportunity that is offered to you as to the Barnet floor, First Minister, and agree with me that this is a vital change because when the deficit is eliminated by the next Conservative government, government, it will be very important that funding here in Wales keeps up with funding in England.
Oh, the member would not believe the resistance in his own party in Westminster to a Barnett floor. He would not believe the sheer resistance. It was our idea, we put it forward, and we got it there. We certainly enjoyed the support of Danny Alexander, which I acknowledge, but I can tell you now, if he thinks that his party was going to deliver a Barnett floor without the pressure that was put on them, then he is being naive, I have to say. Let's bear in mind another thing as well, of course. We are still none the wiser as to whether a Barnett floor is dependent on an income tax referendum or not. We see what was in their manifesto, in black and white, in the manifesto, clarified apparently an hour later, in other words, meaning we didn't know it was there, we didn't read it properly. And then we have the Prime Minister saying something different again, saying, yes, the two things are linked. At some point in time, and this is not for now, this is not questions for the Conservatives, but I offer them the chance at some point to clarify whether their manifesto is correct, or whether what they said an hour later is correct, or whether what their current Prime Minister said some days later is correct. It's an utter mess.
Thank you, First Minister.